In his 30-plus years in journalism, Keith Olbermann has gained a reputation as one of the most provocative and thoughtful voices in American politics. His legendary political monologues are tough, uncompromising, often a bit profane. These days, the focus of Keith Olbermann's fury is none other than arguably the most powerful man in the world, Donald Trump, and he's not pulling any punches. As host of GQ's fittingly titled web series, The Resistance, Keith Olbermann takes on Trump as only he can.
One of the things we've presumably seen but not been able to process is evidence of why the people around Trump allegedly sold this country out to the Russians. Not why he would have done it. You've seen him now for nearly 9 months in office. You and I both know he would do anything for power or for spite or for applause. But why would the people around him do it?
And Keith's anti-Trump commentaries have garnered more than 300 million views. They've now been collected in a new book titled, quote, Donald Trump is effing crazy. And Keith is here to share some of those thoughts with us. It's always good to see you. You and I were figuring out, it's probably about 20 years ago that we were together on a set, and you were asking me questions.
20 years ago when we started MSNBC.
Exactly.
We'll have to atone for that at some point, too, but that's another subject.
Another conversation for us to have. All right, so there's so much I want to talk with you about, but obviously we're going to start with the book. And we're going to start with the book title, because it seems so unlike you to be so reserved and subtle in your title. Let's talk about some of what you talk about here, and then I want to get into some sort of bigger picture questions. I was fascinated by, in the very beginning, you talk about the fact that you were kind of conned.
I was.
By Donald Trump when you first met him. You're talking about back in 1984.
Yeah. I always thought he was Eddie Haskell.
You and I are old enough.
Right.
Leave it to Beaver, Eddie Haskell. Such a nice, hi, Mrs. Cleaver, how are you? You look lovely today, Mrs. Cleaver.
The guy who sucked up to the adults and bullied the kids. Right? That's a fair description.
Right.
But what I didn't know, and I worked with him at NBC, didn't work with him, but saw him in the hallways all the time. He was always very conspiratorial, always a low talker and very good with you and all the rest of that. Then I lived in one of his buildings on the East Side, and I would see him there, and presumably he needed my approval there more than the average person owning an apartment. But he used to come over and suck up to me. And so I thought, well, all right, he's kind of, I wouldn't spend any time with him, but he's benign. And then this guy comes down the escalator in Trump Tower in 2015. It was sprouting this virulent racist stuff. And for a while I was thinking, one of these two things is an act.
Which one?
Well, finally, it dawned on me neither of them is an act. And this was the point, as you suggested at the beginning of the book. I was on my friend Bill Maher's show, and I was telling this exact story about how every time I'd ever had a conversation with him, it was about me, and it was all in low tones and respectful. And I realized as I'm saying this, Bill's going to kill me. You idiot, you fell for that? What are you, crazy? You're corporate sellout, all the rest of this stuff. And instead, Bill essentially says, golly, that was my reaction too. And I thought, his BS detector is far stronger than mine, and he got conned too. This is beyond the range of Trump simply being multiple personalities or using one personality to sell himself or being Eddie Haskell. This is psychological. This is clinical. If he could have filled, I was an easy mark for flattery. I don't think Bill necessarily was, and that was my first moment of thinking, there's something really wrong here. And that's the origin point for the whole series and thus for the book.
We have had, as you know, we have lived through, as a nation in our history, 2 impeachment proceedings, neither of which resulted in a conviction. As people should understand, impeachment basically means the accusation stage. Then there's a trial, and the Senate decides whether there's a conviction or not. We would have had a third, probably, if Richard Nixon had not.
We had an article.
Yeah, exactly. People have looked at impeachment proceedings differently. I've seen it written up as being the ultimate political process. I've seen historians write it up as being the ultimate destruction of the political process. With that as a backdrop, do you think that from your perspective here, that the impeachment of President Trump would be the proper thing to do?
I think
impeachment and then removal.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there are many causes for that. One is, it's not just the title of a book. I think anybody looking at him, Dr. Coburn, the former senator from Oklahoma, Tom Coburn, said that he has a personality disorder. This is a Republican and a medical doctor. There's that whole line of inquiry about whether or not he's fit to fulfill the job. And if this strain is going to provide more and more examples of aberrational behavior in the time to come. That's one issue. The Russia issue is the great wild card. I vary from day to
That
day.
could place you within high crimes or misdemeanors
Right.
that the Constitution talks about. The reality is the Constitution doesn't give us a hard line definition of what removable offenses are.
No, and it doesn't. That's
and
also
intentionally they didn't want.
right. It does not necessarily have to be a criminal act or a provably criminal act. It could be something as nefarious as trucking with another country to get yourself elected.
You might remember that then Representative Gerald Ford, when he asked about impeachment, and President Nixon said, well, the definition of impeachment offense is whatever Congress happens to believe it is at that moment.
More practically, obstruction of justice and the cover-up of the investigation and the interference with the investigation, firing the FBI director, the meeting with Trump Jr. and Veselnitskaya and Trump Sr., at least as the press secretary said, chiming in on the statement about what that meeting was, which turned out not to be correct. There's a whole line of obstruction of justice that may have nothing to do with Russia, ultimately, the decision of what's the truth with Russia. We may never know that. We may never need to know that because there's this third impeachable line, which is based on obstruction of justice, which is the Richard Nixon line. He did everything that Richard Nixon did. What was Richard Nixon convicted of doing? Watergate? No, of concealing Watergate, of covering up Watergate and leaving a trail a mile wide. So to me, there are these three main aspects. Was the election legitimate / Russia, his own health, and the obstruction of justice as well? Likely as not, as you know, Nixon's ouster was not done really for Watergate. It was caused by Watergate, but the day of the end of it, it wasn't even truly a political partisanship thing because the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate every day Richard Nixon was president. People forget that. And as Watergate unfolded and these horrors began to be broadcast on this and other PBS stations every day, the tipping point was not, well, this guy has broken every law that you can imagine and violated the spirit of the Constitution and the two-party system. It was, we're Republicans and we're looking at the midterms in the 3 months and this guy's going to kill every last one of us. We better get rid of him. And to me, the likeliest outcome of all this, unless there's a 25th Amendment action against him for his mental health or physical stability or anything like that, the likeliest outcome is that if he becomes a liability to a majority of Republicans seeking election or re-election in 2018, they will take him out, with obviously the hearty cooperation of the Democrats. I think that's why the Democrats are so hanging back on the issue of impeachment. Also, the likelihood that if they don't do that, if the Republicans don't act against him in 2018, if he's not a liability, a clear liability this time next year, and he's still in the office, obviously, I think the Democrats will take the House and they will act against him.
Keith, we got so much more we can talk about, and you're going to be kind enough to come back tomorrow so we can continue the conversation. We hope you'll join us tomorrow as we continue this conversation with Keith Olbermann.